Yeah, we can get started. So what we want to talk about today, Jason?
I think the coding efficiency of using AI tools.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. You have been a software engineer for how many years? More than 10 years, I
Uh,
assume.
yes, more than 10.
Yeah.
Professionally, more than 10. Yeah.
Yeah. Now with the advancement of AI, so how has the coding changed for you? The experience of coding changed for you? What it was like before and what is like now with AI agent?
It's a lot more pleasant because before coding, you first start with a big idea and you make some proof of concept, and then you have to like look at different tools, how to use those libraries. And essentially your job or my job was to glue them together and hack it till it works and then try to iterate on it. But now with the AI tools, I can have this idea. I can basically write it as a prompt and perhaps paste in a couple of starting references and some maybe custom pieces of API if it's not public, paste it in and it will, for the most part, write code that's fairly good, that the gluing part is pretty much done already. And there might be some little bugs here or there. And overall, it's probably speed up my coding process 3 times.
That's a lot. That's impressive. How how soon do you think the AI agent would be good enough to, let's say, replace most of the junior developers' work? Or you can just, let's say, work with the AI agent and AI agent will create most of the features for you based on your requirements.
I think there's a little bit of complexity in a large
Right.
project. For small projects, it should be fairly good, but large projects having many dependencies, many code references, it's very hard because it's the RAG system that needs to be very good at identifying, okay, here's exactly the piece of corresponding code you need to interact with. But for junior engineers, it's going to be a huge game changer. As a junior engineer, I remember starting out not having a good sense of like, how do I even begin to think about this problem? What are the sort of couple of options I may have to begin tinker around with an idea? And now I think with junior engineers, they can simply ask for suggestion ideas, at least to get a sense of, okay, what is currently out there that the AI knows about? So you can quickly have a couple of working solutions.
Yeah, that is great. So given that the AI is, I'm actually thinking, given that AI is speeding up the development pace, as you mentioned, about at least 3x right now, how, I'm wondering, how does that translate to producing, let's say, ship faster products in general? So let's say previously you will need, I don't know, 1 month to ship a product, develop and ship a product. Does that translate to much faster product shipment? Let's say every week or two, potentially people can ship a
Yes.
new product.
Yes, the features and so in before the amount of complexity in building something is, it still is, it's n squared, right? The number of
Right.
teammates you have, your overhead for communication is n squared. Right. And
Yes.
so at some point there's a trade-off of, okay, additional team member is not going to be very valuable because there's so much overhead in communicating and aligning things. And so that's why we have this like divide and conquer, different responsibilities, and we have project managers to align everybody. So there's a lot of management overhead, but with AI, the team can be much smaller and you simply can get the alignment beforehand. And building startups on firsthand, I can get alignment very quickly and just start going directly to implementation without having to coordinate and say, oh, but here's how I want the API to look on your side. I can simply do that job. So I think we're going to see a transition of engineers who are more broadly experienced rather than deep, because the deep knowledge, while it's still valuable, but for building a product quickly, the deep knowledge isn't as valuable as broad knowledge on knowing how to quickly integrate things together.
Makes sense. As a founder, so let's say you mentioned that we people should be able to ship products with much smaller team, right, than before, which reduces the management cost, which is great. So now as a technical founder in the new world, what is the size of team that you can imagine in the future will be working? in combination with agent and then people or developers that, let's say, ship a decent sized product.
I
At
think
least
it will be, yeah. So there should be at least one agent per developer that they work with. And
Mm,
so right there is at least 2x the team size, even with the same amount of people.
okay.
So everyone gets their own agent and possibly an agent for each specific role. So what I found is agents, the way we're currently building agents is agents have a couple of workflows or tools that you can give them as basically their nuts and bolts that they can use. And if you declare too many, it can potentially suffer because that agent may be unfocused. And in terms of planning out work, it may simply be easier to have, at least in the world where multi agents are the norm, it could be better to have agents that are specialized in the area with access to, say, very tuned parameters, how their prompts are. And so those, because with an agent, the way you build out an agent is every agent has to have like sort of its own behavior set. And that's essentially like a prompt set for them. Here's your role. Here's like who you are as the agent. Here's what you like tend to think about. And so to get the different behaviors, you have to have this declaration. So more agents means more specialization and focus. So
Mm,
at least one agent per engineer, and the engineer team size, even nowadays, coming from Amazon, it's 2-person, 2-box of pizza teams. So that's up to 14 team members, not more than that. And from personal experiences, like around 5 to 8 is a sweet spot.
that is great. A small nimble team actually is able to ship. Do you want to share a little bit about how currently you and your team are using AI to ship your products?
Yeah, I can share about the where I believe the team will be with startups. Startups are a lot quicker and more nimble than large companies. So I think we'll
Right.
begin to see a model where large companies simply stop innovating as much as before, and they simply can buy the product teams outright. And once they identify, oh, this startup is building something that we would like to have. So
Mm,
instead of developing it internally, they will just go out and do acquisition. We'll acquire you, like that saves us the cost of iterating and it saves us the time. Because in a large company, having worked with like prototyping to production teams for example, at Amazon, the team at Amazon had a lot of resources, but there was challenges in terms of getting alignment and motivation. Because in a large company, you have a large team, not all the people there are like hyper focused on what they need to do. They may simply be, for example, transfer employees from other sections of the company. Their motivation may simply be to collect a paycheck. Right. So whereas
yeah.
a startup employee, right from the get go, joining the startup, you're very focused. You're like, I know what I want from a startup experience. I know what this company does. I'm very aligned with the mission already. Large companies, you may not even be aligned with the mission of the company, never aligned the team and whatever. You're just there to collect. So the motivation part is already off. So
Right.
large companies have that disadvantage, and small companies can basically capture that new field, new market, and large companies come in for the acquisition.
That is a interesting perspective. I do see that if large company want to be so nimble, there are a lot of legacy system need to be integrated with the new development kind of world or paradigm. It is hard or it takes longer to do that transition. And it's probably easier to just like you said, just acquire existing startups which already ship the products.
One area that I think startups can't do very well, and I think maybe you can shed some more light on this
Yeah.
being in the R&D part, but it's the R&D. I think startups have a hard problem because R&D is such a expensive and resource consuming, time consuming thing with
Right.
so much uncertainty. I think if startups start doing research, then it's a big problem, right? It's like they're not
Right.
getting product market fit. So what do you take
Yeah.
from that?
But my thought is it's like you said, it's very hard for a startup to afford, let's say, being able to train large models. To me, a lot of opportunities for founders or startups are at how to use existing tools, how to, let's say, use existing models with manageable cost versus review things from scratch. Success like Perplexity AI is probably still very resources intensive and not reachable or accessible for most of the startups. But that said, what's exciting is the reduction of development costs overall with AI. Because without AI doing, let's say, boosting the coding efficiency, founders will need to hire more people likely to ship the same result. So now I think with AI, then the net cost, in this case, compute plus human cost, is likely to be much lower than before. I think in that case, it will be faster to ship new products and cheaper to ship new products in general. Agree that it's hard to find a quote unquote a moat using that, because nowadays a lot of moat is boils down to how much basically resource you have, boils down to even like how big of a data center that you can actually manage and acquire and actually leverage. And that boils down to like how much energy that you can get. So this is hard for startups to compete. But startups can much faster, I think, find a better product market fit by better just leveraging tools and shipping those tools or shipping those products sooner than
Mhm.
before. That I see the sweet spot. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the large companies are, it seems they're able to build a moat around LLMs. So first off, a lot of newer, at least in the current view of the AI startups with based on, use of LLMs and multimodal language models, it's the model itself is their moat. Like even startups have to use some model, and
Mhm.
a lot of startups can't be training their models because it's so expensive. One training round is like in the millions already,
Yeah.
and it's simply unaffordable. And so there's such a concentration of resources into these large, ambitious companies. What is it? OpenAI is in the valuation of billions. I read somewhere it's like 6.5 billion
That,
investment,
yeah,
right?
let
Like
me
it's in
check.
the billions, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
Yeah. And it's in the billions. And so there's no feasible way for any startup to compete with that amount of resources, right? And you're like that amount of resources used correctly, I think will give such a moat that even other companies with similar amount of dry powder or capital dedicated to it have to be so mission aligned and so laser focused on the AI solutions engineering part, right? Like basically the AI solutions engineering is an area where you bridge the gap between what does the customer need to have in terms of an interface and the research direction to go versus what we can build in using these resources, what kind of models we can train. And so the resulting startups essentially are all wrappers around these models.
Hmm. Yeah, by the way, OpenAI valuation is over 150 billion already. Yeah, they are doing really well apparently.
So it would be not surprising if they had 6.5 billion in investments, just hard cash.
Oh yeah, I think they are doing pretty well, at least based on their valuation.
I wanted to ask you, so when we
Yeah,
were doing the Cardano stuff and the Romeverse, one of your sort of ethos was the decentralization of power through blockchain. But
right.
it seems like AI evolution came first, not the blockchain. And so unfortunately, it seems like we're headed towards a direction where there will be a massive centralization of power of productivity. And it's no longer going to be a world where labor alone will get you enough in life. Like back in say 1970s or even just post World War II, as a laborer, you can pretty easily afford a house.
Yeah,
Now, even as a software engineer, like for example, in the Bay Area in San Francisco, even as a software engineer, it's challenging to buy a house. And
yeah,
never mind like normal labor produce just normal laborers. We're having
yeah.
we're going that direction. So what do you think of like this movement?
Yeah. This is challenging to me for the entire human society. I think we it's pretty obvious. even with blockchain, we can talk about AI slightly later, but even with blockchain, the thesis of blockchain was decentralization, right? Was to make it a little bit more fair so that, let's say, the money or the trust is not controlled by a central government, right? So that's the thesis of blockchain. And that was a inspiring thesis. But however, if you look at the reality, you can look at, for example, Bitcoin, as decentralized as it is, but like most of the wealth of Bitcoin is still concentrated at a few wallets, right? It's actually very similar to the overall wealth distribution of the world. So with AI and automation coming to the picture, the global kind of wealth concentration or disparity gonna be accelerated. So it's gonna be more and more people who have capital, who know how to leverage technology or own technology would reap most of the benefit. And then for most of the rest of people, it's just hard to compete even with machine. So recently, just last week, actually, there was a big news actually in the US about port workers. They went on strike. They have actually two requests, main requests or main arguments. One is obviously increasing the wage. The wage is too low. It's basically not keeping up with inflation and so on. And they asked for, I believe, more than 60% increase in wage. The second part, the wage part may be okay. The second part is they want in the contract some protection against automation, right? Because a lot of the port operations now increasingly being automated. So this is actually just a vivid example of human fighting automation, because more automation literally means less job. And this in the macro environment is actually happening all the time. Look, like I don't have a solution per se for, or I don't actually have a good answer for how this can be solved. And I have kids. I've been thinking about quite a bit. What does that actually mean for the kids, for my kids, and for other people's kids, for the next generation in general? Because there was another news, even people in the software is not as safe. And we just chat about, hey, how the AI coding can make coding more efficient. That actually means potentially less roles in at least junior software developer. I read there was another article by I think a Berkeley professor who was saying that during COVID time, during the last few years, actually, like if you are a computer science graduate, like you can easily find a job, but not anymore today. And today, even Berkeley graduate with very good GPA, with very good record, may or may not even land a job after they graduate. So this is how hard the market has become. I would say it's not entirely because of AI, but it may have something to do with AI. And then the future trend is more obvious, which is, yeah, just less obvious opportunity for newer generations or for the bottom, I would say 80-90% of people. Yeah, it's a hard problem. And I live in Bay Area, which is very interesting to see. So on one hand, you have a lot of big companies, pretty rich, founded, right, in Santa Clara, in Sunnyvale, in Mountain View, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, you also see like huge homeless situation. A lot of times people just couldn't afford this economy, just couldn't afford the rent, was priced out by inflation and so on. And like when I commute to work, I use 237, the highway. It's literally the highway is jammed, most likely with tech workers. And then it just off the highway, especially at 238, 880 junction, you see just a lot of homeless. They are just camping near or next to the highway. It's a very bizarre scene.
It
You,
sounds
you're,
dystopian.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
very bizarre and dystopian. You're literally at the heart of Silicon Valley, and you have tech workers obviously making a ton. And then at the same time, yeah, you have a lot of people who actually need help. That is I would say, a very bizarre picture, but that capture the current reality. So the good old days, quote unquote, where people can just graduate and just find, I remember in the past, like you can just be a postman or you can just find a just regular job. You will be able to afford a family with a house and whatnot. But now it's much, much harder to achieve.
Yeah. It seems like humanity as in general, without being, even though we're all humans, but without being too overly attached to humans, if we take a neutral position and stance, it seems like humanity is on the path of automating away its own existence, its own usefulness. Like I can imagine a world where AI is so much better in terms of intelligence and form, physically and intellectually, that it's just superior to humans in every way. And humans are simply like no more powerful than like an ant or a termite, right? And at some point, it seems like humanity is just becoming, at least we're on, it seems like we're possibly on the path if we extend that to say 1,000 or a million years down the road.
Right. I'm thinking like even forget about 1,000 years. Look how far have we gone or have we advanced in the just last few decades. Neural network was not even popular. We didn't even have enough compute to power neural networks maybe 50, 60 years ago. And look how far we have gone. Like just maybe in the 90s, like not everybody has a PC or has a computer. Now, not only like computer and like with smartphones, like tablets is in pretty much everybody's hand, especially in Western countries. Now we have like very advanced computers like AI that powers AI that actually does really fancy thing that when I grew up, I would not have imagined that being possible. That just happened within 30, 40 years. Fast forward, I think, I don't know, another 100 year, it's hard to predict how it's gonna look like. Forget about 30,000 of years. We are looking at a rapid change within not even a full human lifespan. It's just like half of a human lifespan. That's how fast the change is.
It certainly feels like the speed of development in human civilization has been growing exponentially. At least with AI now, it is with the productivity, one
Yeah.
tech worker equaling like three or more workers before, there is a magnification and possibly exponential growth in productivity and capability. Yeah, as you're right, 100 years is going to be quite the change itself already. And it's really surreal and hard to imagine just 100 years from now what it could look like. So maybe the Matrix is aligned with that.
Yeah.
So with, do you think, maybe this is a topic for another broadcast or podcast, but do you think there's a solution for this and what that might look like where humans can peacefully coexist, and what kind of future would that look like? Could blockchain possibly be a sort of equalizer tool? What is the
Yeah.
value of human?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about if blockchain gonna solve that problem efficiently. The key problem, in my opinion, is more about distribution. It's actually, if you look at in general, automation could be good. Like automation could actually should be relieving human from some, let's say, mundane tasks. Let's say dishwasher, like helps me help people like wash dishes faster so that people have more time, just enjoy life in general. So in general, in the grand scheme of things, automation should free human as a whole more time so that they can enjoy their life a bit better. But reality is not happening mainly because of distribution, right? Because the current social contract in most of the country is still driven by capital. I'm not saying this is necessarily bad, but humans have not really figured out a, a better mechanism to distribute resources basically more evenly. If you artificially force that, it's going to cause more problem. Currently, we all agree on say, hey, if you produce, let's say, goods and service other people want, and then other people are willing to pay X, then you can sell at X, right? For most of the part, this is how economy works in general for most of the parts. But that would just, the system itself potentially will lead to, in my opinion, uneven distribution that results in the net resource that humans have may or may not be that small. But when you distribute across, then most of people may or may not feel they get enough, at least the current phase. And then I don't see this gonna get any better. I'm sorry, I don't have a good solution to solve that big problem. I think human need to figure out that big problem. It's a
But
distribution.
at least I think you identify the problem. So distribution, when you say distribution, I hear interest alignment, right?
Distribution, interest alignment is one of
So
them.
here's why I think that if you are aligned in how you distribute your rewards from automation,
Right.
you're actually aligning interests, right? If I do something that is productive and you somehow benefit as well from that, then your interest is aligned with me. If I do better, you do better. So we have alignment. But if it's not distributed to you, I simply do better and you get no benefit. In fact, your job might be automated away. So then we have almost a misalignment, not only a misalignment, the opposite alignment, right? My improvement means your job is going to be taken away. It's almost like a zero sum game now.
But let's say the labor, the people who have their job automated away, they don't need they are not asked for alignment, so they don't necessarily have a choice or voice, right? Because those who actually own the technology, who own the business, will make a decision and say, "Hey, I want to make this process cheaper, faster, better. Therefore, I would go with another solution." The labor, the worker who actually was at a position where their job being automated away, they're not even asked to sit in a table for alignment. So that
Yeah.
is a problem, right?
Case in point with the worker strike at the port worker strike, right? Because these port workers, I'm speculating, yeah, if they get what they want, the parent company that they negotiated with may sign this contract for the time being, but ultimately that contract is going to prevent them from being more profitable. And so at the end of the day, the board members may decide to say, shut it down and start
Yeah,
another company, right? That might be what we see, like where another company is not legally bound to this contract with the union and they
yeah,
do automation from the get go.
yeah. So with organized labor, like with union now, the difference is the labor potentially has a seat at the table in terms of quote unquote alignment, as you mentioned. That's a positive. But the risk is like you mentioned, if the Indian, if the business does not run profitably, the entire organism gonna just die, right?
Mhm.
Both the labor and the kind of the owner of the business.
So
So that,
this is a policy problem, right?
what do you mean policy?
If you see negotiation, these contract as a policy, that organism's policy is not effective, right? If there was another organism or an organism that has no such restrictions, it can simply be more productive, more efficient, less costly, and simply outcompete this one
Yes.
that does have the restriction. So it's a policy matter. It's not that it's not capable. It's the policy that's killed.
The policy meaning that one organization enable, let's say, organized labor versus another organization just being more nimble, doesn't allow organized labor, but they can, as a business, they can move faster. Yeah, so that's true. In that case, at the organism level, the one who actually allow, let's say, better labor negotiation, more leverage on labor would in a disadvantaged position.
Right.
In the other day, naturally, the alignment is broken down. The quote unquote alignment is broken down. Right. That's just in a market mechanism why some alignment in the other day would break down. So that leads to the original point, which is we actually don't have an organic good right distribution mechanism.
So
That
you're right. We don't, but I'm thinking these are individual organisms, individual companies. So it seems like we have to enforce them on a more broader level. So it's probably governance, right? Legislation needs to step in and do some sort of mandating that protects the interest and aligns the interest together.
right. That's ideal, but we have been having government for long time, right? Government probably help in some way, but and actually, if you can look across the governments in the world, there are a lot of different governments. I would argue there are some countries people may feel it's more fair. People live maybe overall better than other countries, but by and large, the biggest companies, if you look at US, if you look at, let's say in the East, a very different system, let's say China, you see both in both places, the wealth gap just increases. Young people actually it's very interesting. Young people feel less opportunity than their older generation. It's very a kind of a common phenomenon across the world where each country has their own government and the governing kind of structure even different, the governance structure is different, but yet the net result seems to be similar. In this case, more wealth concentration towards the top, and the most of people have less opportunity and less resources than before, at least from a feeding perspective.
This is a very interesting topic, and I'm thinking maybe we can extend it for
Yeah.
next discussion.
Yeah, I don't think we can talk like all day long. I don't think there's an answer, to be honest. Maybe we can talk next time. What I really care about is practically knowing that the world is changing very fast, the technology is moving very fast. Like practically, what we can do for our kids to prepare our kids to get ready for the new world.
Yeah,
Because
what do they need to learn and such?
yeah, exactly. What's their strategy? What should we optimize as the younger generation? Really,
Yeah,
in this society, we can talk in the next time.
that is going to be a very interesting topic. My kid has started grade 1 now, so this is going to be
Yeah,
more and more relevant. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Cool. Very nice.
Okay.
Night, night. So next
Uh,
time.
yeah, I'll stop it for now.